This C5 Corvette has been abandoned. Abandoned by me. Except, not really. It's just been used and used and used, driven all over the place. Because it's literally been too good of a car and hasn't really needed anything. Except now, it is showing a little wear. So today, we're giving the C5 a little makeover. She is gonna come out of this garage a new C5 Corvette, back to her former glory as one of the nicest, one of the cleanest C5 Corvettes in this solar system. We're upgrading the brakes, painting the calipers, guess the color down in the comments, finding the source of the profuse oil leak making a mess of the underside, and finally sorting out if my check engine light's still on for no cats, or if she's got other codes now, amongst the other stuff we're gonna find once we start to dig in. Let's get to work, because we've got lots to do. The best money I ever spent right here lifts the Vette to the perfect height, so even my 6'5" lanky frame can work in complete comfort and relaxation. It's the bend pack mid-rise scissor lift, since I know a lot of people are curious about it. Isn't this lift the freaking best? It sure beats driving on ramps just to get the Vette high enough so I can put a jack under it. Now we're airborne, the wheels come off, which brings me to something I've been waiting to address. I'd like to extend a quick shout out and a thank you to everyone in my last C5 Corvette video where I rotated the tires, and I got all sorts of smack from people saying that I wasn't supposed to rotate these. Don't get me wrong, I get more help from the freaking comments than anywhere else. You guys are amazing. But I think there was a misunderstanding because on my back tires, which everyone said are directional, these are not a directional tire. There's no arrow pointing which way they should go, and on the Continental Tire website, it doesn't say anything about being a directional tire. So again, thank you everyone for, bringing that to my attention, but these are not directional tires. At least from the research that I've done and looking at the tire. But again, thank you. So, brakes. The rotor's got a pretty good lip on them, and the pads, they've got some life left, but there's one reason why I want these things out, and it's not for safety. These stupid things make so much dust, they make the wheels look disgusting, so I'm just gonna replace everything right off the bat. And once I eventually find the right size socket, I can remove the caliper bolts, pull off the caliper itself, and take out the old pads. Then struggle to loosen the two larger 13/16 bolts holding on the caliper bracket. He's got some torque on him, but not from me. All right, that is a lot of dust. Woo. And, oh yeah, these were due. These were due. Now before we install the new stuff, I should probably tell you what I got. So did I get C606 brakes? Did I get ATS-V Brembo brakes? No and no. And I'll explain why. Yep, no C606 brakes, no Cadillac ATS-V brake swap. This is about as middle of the road as you can get. I went with a Power Stop ceramic pad and coated rotor brake kit, which I'll include a link for down below. And the reason that I went with this Power Stop kit as opposed to the C606 front brake calipers and rotors that everyone says to do, look, those do look incredible. It stops like you wouldn't believe. It'll put you right through the windshield. But unfortunately, everyone caught on to how good they are, and now you can't really get the calipers for any sort of reasonable price, it seems. I wanted something that was going to stop the Vette good. I was already really happy with the stock braking performance, my stops down from the speed limit. But I wanted ones, most importantly, with no dust. So ceramic pads, these were around 30 bucks, were the way to go. For some reason, whatever pads were on here created so much dust. It just looked like crap. It didn't look like I took care of my car. I went with the basic ceramic pads because they don't create that much dust, and that is what I really want on this car. I'd rather just have the car look good and perform good. It doesn't have to freaking throw me down the street through the windshield, but it needs to stop, and it needs to look good. And then I went with coated rotors because I'm in New England. I drive this car in the winter, I know, tisk tisk. So rust preventative is the name of the game. These are coated with a specialized coating so they won't rust, especially in the winter while I'm driving with my Christmas tree. Now, I also had a lot of people telling me to do the Cadillac ATS-V brake swap. Now, I looked into that. It does look like a pretty good idea, and I know a lot of guys have tested it and it works, but there was a few things that I saw where you had to add washers to space the caliper or something, and supposedly with these wheels, from what I read, you'd have to run a spacer. I don't want to run spacers up front. I love the fitment I have up front, and I don't want to lose it. So, should I start to do more track stuff with the Vette or change the wheels at some point? Then I probably will end up just doing the C6 Z06 brakes. But for now, this is what I want to go with. While the caliper bracket's off, I'm going to hit it with a wire wheel to get it ready for paint. Looking good. Next, I can install the new hardware that came with the kit into the mounting bracket and caliper itself, then bolt the caliper bracket back on. But before I could put the caliper and new pads back on, I discovered a little problemo. Oh man, I think my slide pin's frozen. See, this one moves. This one, frozen solid. And after doing some digging, it appears GM doesn't sell just those slide pins. You have to buy the whole bracket. But I know usually at like O'Reilly's and AutoZone you can get them. O'Reilly's doesn't have it anywhere. It says it's a special order item. AutoZone has one, except for it's like 2 towns away. So I really have no choice. I'm gonna pull the rest of the brakes off at least. That way I can see if there's any more that are frozen and if I'll have to grab, what else they have in stock at the store. I definitely got to make sure all the rest of the slides are fine on the other calipers, so I'm not having breakfast, lunch, and dinner with my pals at AutoZone, making trip after trip up there. And each of the rest of the corners, as I go along and disassemble, all seem fine. Driver's side rear good, passenger side rear good, front passenger side, my biggest worry, the slides were fine there too. With all the brakes apart, I can pop the old hardware out. Now I can hit each of the rest of the mounting brackets with the wire wheel too, so everything's smooth and ready for its new paint job in a bit. Then hit them with some brake clean to get off any dust that didn't come off with the wire wheel. Perhaps I should have opened a door for ventilation for this part. Anyone else feel funny? Now with the rotors off, I'm going to grease all the fittings I can now reach. Then start to reassemble the brakes. Like a glove. I use a lug nut or 2 hand threaded on to keep the rotor in place. Hopeful little trick. Pretty. I'm replacing all the hardware that was included in the brake kit and bolting back up the caliper mounting brackets and torquing them down to 125 foot-pounds. As I go along, I'm pulling out the caliper slide pins, wiping off the old grease, and re-smothering them with fresh grease so they slide nice and easy, unlike the seized one. Then I can open up our pads and slide them into the brackets, up front and out back. Once all were in, I got a call from AutoZone to say my part was ready. Now the problem is trying to get this old one out. I mean, that thing is super frozen in there. I'm super strong and that thing is not moving at all. Let's start with some heat. That's not enough heat. Come on now. Here it comes. That's hot. Once I wiped away my tears, I got out the new slide pin and smothered it in berry-flavored brake jam. Then put it back into the caliper. Now it's time for the fun part of this project, painting the calipers. Granted, the prep part isn't the most fun, but we're one step closer to the painting part. The first caliper I sanded with 220, and it came out good. I tried using a die grinder with a scuff pad to speed things along, but it was a bit aggressive and took the caliper straight down to bare metal in some parts, which actually in this case, I'd rather have sanded paint for the caliper paint to bite into since there's no primer. So I do a mixture of both. Now I know some of you are thinking, why didn't I just remove the caliper at this point since it's practically already off? But since I'm using a brush, I can be careful and control where the paint goes. But once they're all sanded down, I can use some big channel locks and an old brake pad to slowly push in the caliper pistons and bolt the calipers back up to the bracket. The brakes are all back together and ready for paint. But we aren't gonna paint. I think I'm gonna wait and do it tomorrow only because it's cold. It's freezing outside. It's gonna be probably 10 degrees tonight overnight. And the paint, I know will need to cure after I put it on. So I can get up early tomorrow, warm up the garage, because I'll be working in here the rest of the day anyways, paint the stuff, and then the paint can cure all day long because the heat will be on, because I'll be working on other stuff. I think that's probably the better idea. And the next morning, the garage was up to temp, and we were ready to paint. And this is what we're going to be painting the calipers with. This is a brush-on paint. I wanted to make sure that I got a brush-on paint because, one, I'm in the garage here, it's freezing outside, I've got to paint inside and I can't be spraying. Second of all, I like the coverage that you can get with a brush, especially on something intricate like a caliper, so you don't have to take it all the way off, even though mine were most of the way off anyway. And three, I also think you can get thicker coats on there, which should technically mean more durable. But we don't really have to worry about durability anyways, because this, as I said, is an epoxy. It's high gloss and it's heat resistant up to 980 degrees. If my brakes ever get to that temperature, there is a problem. Epoxy is a two-part mixture, the resin and a hardener, that chemically reacts to make a really hard and really strong bond, whereas an enamel paint, like you'd get in a spray can, is just one single component that dries through evaporation. Enamel can look really good and is pretty durable depending how you prep it, but epoxy is the most heavy-duty coating best suited for industrial applications, meaning these calipers will stay glossy and looking good no matter how many times they're hit with acidic wheel cleaners or road debris. And drum roll please, the color that I went with is yellow. I love the way the yellow looks. This pewter's kind of an odd color. I didn't want to do red. I love the yellow. It seems like a lot of people love the yellow, so we're sticking with yellow. Now you don't really need to mask stuff off since we'll be painting with a brush, but I know my skill level and aim, so I'm gonna do a little masking quick beforehand. Now we can open up our kit and paint. We've got some brake cleaner for cleaning, a baggie full of goodies, and the paint. They give you brushes, gloves, and look, they gave us a free shot. Just kidding. Don't do that. This is the hardener. Now I'm just gonna spray the calipers down with the brake cleaner, making sure not to get it on the coated rotors or in mouths. That went in my mouth. This is probably the most important make or break. Get it? This is probably the most important make or break part of the job. So I'm cleaning well. At first, the color didn't look anything like the bright, sunshiny yellow I was going for. Ooh. It was more of a, I haven't drank any water in 4 days, is my urine supposed to be this dark? Kind of yellow? We pour in the entire thing of activator into the paint, stir it real good with the wooden popsicle stick. Now it's starting to brighten up. There we go. Let it sit for 5 minutes, stir it again, and now we're ready to get painting. 5 minutes is up. Freckle past the hair. Time to paint. We've got 2 to 4 hours of working time with this stuff. We shouldn't need that much time, right? Right? Since I've never used a fancy two-part epoxy before, I'm more of a Rust-Oleum kind of guy, I'm gonna follow the directions to a T. And it says to do a thin, light, even coat. And after 15 minutes, we can do another one. The first coat definitely doesn't look like it does much at first, but I'm keeping it light and just trying to achieve full coverage with this coat. Once every caliper gets a coat, I'm going back and giving them all a second. The second coat definitely starts to cover better, and since I've got more paint left, I go back and give everyone a third, then a fourth. I want these things to shine, and I've surprisingly still got paint left, so why let it go to waste? And finally, we're done. We'll come back out tomorrow to see how they look, and to do our next little trick. Now, it's been a few days. I've pulled off all of the tape, And these things are looking very, very nice. Beautiful. Besides where my aim wasn't that good, but just ignore that. But we aren't done yet. There's one last thing I want to do to these brake calipers, and it's going to be a bit of an experiment. See, 5 years ago, when I last painted these calipers, once I was done painting them, I took a razor blade and just like cut and sliced the paint off the raised Corvette letters. And then I clear coated them. And that looked really cool. It was really different to have the yellow calipers with the like silverish. It was literally like a aluminum silver finish for the Corvette writing. This time, however, I want to try something a little different. I'm going to take a piece of finer grit sandpaper, 220 in this case, and I'm going to lightly sand the Corvette letters on the front two calipers, because they're the only ones with the Corvette writing. I'm doing this to rough them up and give them some texture so my paint I'm painting the letters with has something to bite into. I'm painting the letters with this. It's not a regular Sharpie. This is an oil-based paint pen I got at Home Depot, and I'm going to use it with my very unsteady hand to paint the raised Corvette letters. Remember, this is a test. It might not be perfect, but I want to try it and see how it comes out. And how do they look? Now the brakes are officially done. Now I let them sit after doing the black lettering there. I let them sit overnight. I doubt that you really have to with that. It's just a paint pen, but better safe than sorry. Before I did anything, I just wanted those to sit and dry or cure. I am very, very happy with the way that these brakes came out. I really like the look of the coated rotors, and man, does that yellow pop. They didn't seem dull before, but man, these things really, really pop now, especially with the black Corvette writing on there. Now, I know the Corvette script part didn't come out 1000% perfect. I got a little bit more bleed than I was expecting with that paint pen. If you held the pen in the same spot for just a millisecond too long, it would kind of bleed and would almost run down a little bit. But that's also me staring directly at it from this distance and judging it. When it's out on the road and stuff, I'm sure it's going to look really, really good. And I'm kind of happy the fact that I did that by hand. That's kind of cool. Now, next up on the to-do list will be what I believe FedEx or UPS just dropped off, actually. Two things, actually. So one's an upgrade for the Vette, or replacement part for the Vette, and one's an upgrade for the garage, which I'm extremely excited about because I'm extremely cold in here. It's quite frigid. It's like 12 degrees outside and not immensely warmer in here. So I'm gonna get this set up quick first. That's if I can access it. Leave your home. This would be an awfully bad time for someone to walk in. Gosh, I'm intelligent. This thing's the Intercraft Max Heat Torpedo Heater. Liquid propane fueled, it pumps out 30,000 to 68,000 BTU, which, in doing research for my smallish 23 by 27 garage with slightly loose insulation, is wicked overkill. But that's okay. I don't think I'll complain. And I like that it's portable, so I can pick it up and put it anywhere around the garage. I'm just using my 20-pound propane tank I've got laying around to feed it with the hose and regulator the heater comes with. I plug it into an outlet, turn on the gas, flip the switches, and she's throwing heat. Yep. It blows the warmth with a forced air fan. You feel that thing way out here. I'm already about ready to lose the switcher. My gosh. It's on the lowest setting right now. I can crank it up. That thing is pretty cool. I'll include a link for it down in the description below if any of you guys are interested. You can check it out. It's pretty cheap and it works wonders in a little garage like this. You've probably seen in the background that I have this other heater right here and this fan. This is a 30,000 BTU ventless unit, but the only problem is when it's on, all it's doing is it's just heating right above it. It has a built-in fan, but the fan doesn't blow anything anywhere. That's why I put this one up here with this very very highly engineered mount. And that fan just blows, at least circulates the warm air somewhat. This one's connected to a 100-pound tank outside. But the only thing is, in order to get this place any sort of, temperature that's not absolutely freezing, it's gotta run for hours and hours. That's why the torpedo heater is gonna be so valuable in firing this thing up before I come out here, cranking up the heat. It's set down lower, get in here up to a nice, decent temperature, and then I can turn on the wall-mounted heater and let that one sit at a low setting to at least maintain the temperature in here. And now, let's open up the vet parts. We've got some brandy new sway bar end links. Nothing fun or exciting. Could be an improvement in the handling? Maybe? Last C5 video where I did a little inspection, I noticed that the grease boots on my sway bar end links were not in great shape. And there's tons of dirt and sand in there. The number one killer for these is those rubber boots breaking and a bunch of crap getting in there. That's what kills them. Now, judging from mine is a grease fitting. So I'm gonna guess that mine at some point have already been changed. This one has a grease fitting too. Now, I still years and years later have that odd, creaking sound. Not sure what it is still. It's really cheap to replace these. I went with GM genuine ones, the stock ones. Should be the better ones, even though they don't have a grease fitting, they're not greasable. So let's get these things in. I'm gonna be replacing both driver and passenger side links, since neither of mine are in very good shape, and you're supposed to replace both when you change them out anyways. And once I eventually find the right size socket, I can take off the bottom nut, which eventually requires taking an 18mm wrench and holding the tab on the bolt to keep it from spinning with the nut. Now the bottom nut's out, the top one takes a little more finesse and strength. The 1/2-inch ratchet isn't budging this thing. So it's time for... Finally that one's out. Jeez, needed the freaking impact. And with a little acrobatics, the first end link's out. And boy, it's yummy. I can't be putting this shiny new link into this greasy, globby mess. No way. So now I'm just cleaning up where it'll mount up, then navigating the link into position, before noticing something is not right. The nuts we took off, which we're supposed to reuse, aren't threading. Aren't threading at all. Well, of course. Normally on these, you just reuse the nuts that you take off of the old sway bar end links, but some way, somehow, both of the two nuts that I have, don't laugh, neither of them fit the new sway bar end links. So now I gotta try to find what size nut fits on those, because this one is not it. I traveled from one store to another, to another, to another, wish I was kidding, till I finally found the nut. Hardware acquired. Why does no one have such a simple flange nut? It's time to get these sway bar end links in. The new nuts thread on like butter. I snug them up, then we can move over to the passenger side to get the link that's in not much better shape than the driver's side was out of the vet. I just spin these both off with the impact, since I don't have to worry about hurting anything now. And she's out. Then once again, wipe the goop from around the mounting surfaces, wiggle and bend the new link into both slots, thread on the new nuts, then I'll torque all 4 nuts on both sides to 53 foot-pounds, which was not the easiest thing to get the torque wrench in there. Good, 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 and good. Brakes are done, suspension's fixed, and I'm gonna call it a wrap for today's video because I'm still waiting on some parts, and I don't want to keep you guys waiting for, another month until I have another video up with the C5. We still have lots of work to do to this thing to get it back where I want it. So thank you all very much for watching. I'll include links to everything I used the sway bar end links, the G2 caliper paint, the new torpedo heater. I'll include links to all that down in the description below, but I will see you guys in the next one. Happy motoring. I definitely don't think I'll be taking the Vette out today.